How's everybody? Thank you, Pablo. That was a presentation and a surprise as well. You were not supposed to show everything you've done. My God, that's not fair. But anyway, congratulations. This is huge. I know, my friend, that you've done a terrific presentation and job for all these years. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud to be the first one we connect. And it's fair to say that we reached to you, our director and president of the Chamber of Commerce in Argentina. And I should say this to someone who is right here, and is Manuel Manzotti. He contacted you, and he worked with us at the very beginning very hard. And so thank you, Juan Manuel. I see you later. We'll see you later on the screens. So thank you, everybody, again. And this is about, we don't have that huge presentation. All I have is my word, and is my team. And I'm so proud of this terrific team. And here we are. This is kind of I'm going to talk about them because we are an ABRG because I have this wonderful and powerful people like Christian, my friend. What can I tell, right, about you? Just love you. Martin Venegas. I mean, we've been together in this forever. Sergio from Monser. Gonzalo Camaño, he's just with us. He just joined us. Macarena, Manu, La Molina, and Melina. And all of us, we have a story behind, and that's why it's not a pyramid. This is, I mean, we work all together, so we are all leaders, and we are all in this. And I'm so proud of you guys, so thank you so much. And there's something that I should say about my team, and is we have two very powerful values, and one of them is that this is a group real committed to people. We are people advocate 100%, and also because of that, we make this company visible as well. And there's always a story behind, right? And you are right now behind the scenes because this is where it comes our story. And even though Bob is gonna show you the story of American Airlines, I'm gonna let him talk about this. There's a very humble story about our team down here in Argentina, and I'm gonna thank because we've been recognized and first and the only airline in this country to get the inclusive certification from VA Buenos Aires. Thank you, Francisco, because I know you are right there. I know you are listening. And thank you, Natasha, because for us it was such a great asset. Thank you for recognizing our company. And also we have a huge community impact, and it was Casa Manu. And please relax, everybody. If there's something you don't get, I'm going to go slow, and yo hablo español. Así que Casa Manu, Bob, I'm going to turn that in Spanish. Casa Manu means la vida para nosotros. Hemos trabajado muchísimo con estos chicos. Quiero agradecer eternamente a todos. Pueden googlar de qué se trata. Perfil muy bajo con esto, pero realmente es algo que a nosotros nos conmueve día a día y es lo que realmente nos lleva a seguir en esta transformación, y eso es lo que hemos hecho. There's also someone else, three very special person for us, and it's Justin Cooper, Stephen, Cheryl, Winston Lam. I know, guys, you are there. You were there from the very beginning, as well as Maria Emilia Serrano, Jose, as well as Sofia. All of them were at the very beginning with us, and we all remember you. You're always with us, and especially Justin, Stephen, and Winston. Winston, I mean, you've done a terrific job with us, mentoring and spoiling us, and as well as Stephen and Sherry. We were waiting for you, as we didn't know what to expect. So basically, this is our message. This is the message from Buenos Aires. We're people advocate. We care about you. We want to make you visible. We want to speak loud. We don't want anyone else to say everything is fine because no one is hurting me. No, that is discriminating. We want you to speak loud and be proud. we want you to tell your story. That's why we're telling you our story. We didn't know anything. We were just learning and building this friendship with the Chamber of Commerce. We started with them, and then with Pride Connection, there's a lot of companies and guys from Pride Connections that really help us and show us the way as well as our managers, Gonzalo and Pablo and everybody, and Patrick, and all the people who trust this is about. So now, this is the most amazing thing that happened to me. I'm going to talk about someone that I really admire, and I'm still shocked about you being in my life as a friend, my dear Bob. Thank you for doing this for us, because we have a spectacular program for you to tell us our story, but we transformed that, and here we are with a positive attitude. So please listen carefully about Bob Witeck, because he's known as one of the leaders. I'm going to read this because I don't want to skip anything. He's known as one of the leading communication experts on the global LGBT marketplace and workplace. Author of the first LGBTQ marketing book in 2006, Business Inside Out. His company was named by Fortune magazine as the pre-eminent gay marketing and consulting firm. In 1994, Bob Witeck began his partnership with American Airlines to craft successful LGBT business and communications strategies. Since those early pioneering days, American Airlines has strengthened its global standing as the airline of choice, serving its LGBTQ workforce and customers. That is a lot, right? But there's something about Bob. He is the most generous and committed person to the community and society I've ever met before, and sincere. So, my friend, welcome, thank you, and I leave you with all these people.
Vivi, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to see if I can actually share my screen now. And then you'll have to take back everything you said about me, because I may screw this up.
No, you did not.
I did not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Hello, everybody. Good evening. That background behind me is Washington, D.C., as you can see, where I'm sitting right now, actually. Oh, here we go. I'm going to see if I can make this go up here. There. Did I do it actually? Good. Are we okay, Pablo?
We are okay. Only F5 and we are ready.
I'll go F5. I'll go F5 right there. Did that work? Nope.
Not yet.
Still trying. Every time I hit it, it doesn't do anything for me, I'm afraid. Oh wait, display settings. Let me go walk up here again to this thing. Did that do it?
No. Ah, yes. Now it's okay. Perfect.
Now it's okay. Well, thank you, and I will try to stay on course now. Vivi, thank you so much, my dear friend. And Pablo Gustavo, as you know, I've known you probably longer than everybody else here. I've been in your beautiful city and with the chamber for over a decade, which reminds me that the most important moment in my history was looking back 10 years ago when I first arrived. I'd only been in Buenos Aires for what, 2 days, when we went to the Casa Rosado and saw the president sign into law the marriage equality law. Unbelievable. I had never imagined that, having arrived there for the conference, that we were going to be there timed with this moment and certainly in world history. It was the 10th nation on earth. And the thing that was interesting to me, I think, was there were a number of Americans who were invited to attend this program. And we stood there with the president. She told us one thing that I'd never forgotten. She wanted to tell the world that Argentina was this leader. And what better way to say that you were a leader than to show all of us that you were taking this giant step forward to recognize gay couples, to recognize same-sex marriage. And I thought, my gosh, this is so breathtakingly pioneering and so important. And she also knew that it was going to help in terms of commerce. She saw immediately that it was a boost to the economy, not just of Argentina, but Latin America. And so she was extremely proud of it. And she then welcomed us, and we spent an hour in her office, as you remember too, Pablo. The entire time she was speaking Spanish, and I was looking to your lips and Gustavo to make sure that I understood what she was saying. But it was all lovely, and it was memorable. And I wrote an article about it when I returned to the United States to give credit. So that's my second home was Buenos Aires, because obviously I felt the love of the people and the community there the minute I arrived. But I want to tell you the story that how I got involved, certainly in the marketplace, and my work, of course, with American Airlines. Now I'm going to try to forward this slides now. Now, how do I do that?
All you have to do is to go in the low bar.
Lower bar.
Yes, in the.
Oh, it's over here. It's over here. I see it now. I'm sorry. On one screen, I have two screens, and I can't see both. That's all.
Muy bien.
I'll move it along. There we go. Since 1993, I've been very active in the marketplace. I began working actually with American Airlines, was my very first client, along with another client I'll speak about in a moment. But the kind of work that excites me is helping create the economic case for the LGBTQ community. What I wanted to do was, I believe to begin with, that the gay community were natural allies with business, and that business would excel insofar as they accepted LGBTQ people and recognized our contributions. So it was very, very important to me to educate and make the business case of why we matter as consumers, as employees, as investors, as business owners. And in fact, in 2004, I became the very first business certified by the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce in the United States, and have had the privilege to work with Gustavo and Pablo and with the Chamber in Buenos Aires ever since. Along the way, we helped advise the census in the United States in 2010. We helped launch the first LGBTQ cable network logo. I work today with Stanford's Graduate School of Business, which runs a executive leadership program for LGBTQ executives. Throughout all of this, what we're trying to do is really put a human face, visibility for LGBTQ people, so that business and society in general will accept our contributions as equal to anybody else. But 26 years ago, we started this also with another project that was extremely important, at least to me, the National Coming Out Day campaign. National Coming Out Day grew out of the 1987 National March on Washington. When gay people came back from Washington that year, they formed a day every October 11th to urge all of us to come out of the closet. At the beginning, a lot of us imagined that Coming Out Day was a way of making us feel good. But it's much, much more than that. Because without visibility, we are nothing. As long as we stay hidden in the corner or in darkness or invisible, then we can't influence anyone. And so, as The Economist made a point, the most important force driving the spread of gay rights is familiarity. And LGBTQ people are familiar as neighbors, co-workers, business owners, consumers, then we matter. If we stay in the closet, we can't make a difference. So that work has gone on, but it's made all the difference in the world. 1993 was a very historic time for me, because that December, I got a call from a senior executive American who I knew very well, Tim Doak. What had happened throughout the course of 1993, there were two major missteps, I call them. They were people living with AIDS who had customer care issues with the airline, In the first instance in that summer, during that march, there was a march that year as well. Many of the gay people were flying back to Dallas, and the flight crew sent a signal or sent a message back to Dallas to remove all the pillows and the blankets on board for fear that they might have HIV contamination. They had so misunderstood that gay people per se are not all carriers of HIV, but what they had done is stigmatized a whole group of people by labeling them that way. And then later, a man living with AIDS, Timothy Hollis, was taken off of a flight American Airlines because he was carrying a transfusion and trying to put the medicine up in the overhead compartment. Those two incidents created a significant backlash across the community. There was even a global boycott threatened that year because American miscommunicated clearly its understanding of gay people to begin with, but also a profound ignorance about HIV. The great news, though, the very good news, and whenever I tell the story, I try to explain it in this way. All of these things that happened that year were the mistakes or missteps of a few people. They did not represent what the company stood for or its values. And as soon as the company understood what had happened, the thing that heartened me immediately was that they knew that they had to put it right. And it couldn't just be a public relations response. It couldn't be simply saying, we got it wrong. At that point, when those stories started going all around the world, there was a significant effort by a number of LGBTQ advocates and activists to have a boycott against the airline. And from that, we understood that they had not been properly communicating their values or their policies. They also required some education in terms of flight crews had to understand more about what HIV is, for one thing. But it created an opportunity. We met with the executives at American Airlines that December. And this was the question I was asked during that meeting. Do you think we have many gay employees at American Airlines? The man who asked this question, I think at the time, was the general counsel. We had 6 people in the room. And when he asked that question, I didn't know quite how to answer it because obviously, who knows? But the answer that I wanted to give him, I wanted to say is, it's good that you asked that question because what it means is you don't know who they are. That you can change. In fact, from that meeting, I have to say, from that very meeting, the very first advice we gave them is to organize an LGBTQ employee resource group. They were fairly new in corporate America. Corporations truly did not have many of these, and very, very few had LGBTQ groups. They didn't identify or sanction their gay employees to form groups. But interestingly, one of the gentlemen in that meeting and in the room, who is now a very good friend of almost 28 years, he was a gay man, but he didn't say a word in the meeting. He waited until we walked out to the curb outside the building and told me then that he was gay. And as soon as he said that, I said, well, there's the issue. We have a gay man in a room, we're talking about gay people, and he was afraid of even saying that he was a gay man in the meeting. So we realized that that was the first step he had to take, was be open. And he ended up being one of the founders of the earlier LGBT called Gleam, before they merged, of course, with Pride, became Pride with US Airways. But through that meeting, I learned a lot. Mostly I learned that American Airlines, at its core, its values were very, very good. In fact, in 1993, they were the first major airline to have a non-discrimination policy that included sexual orientation. Most other airlines didn't have anything even approaching that. They'd begun to do some work, and they realized that their reputation was on the line, not just for gay people, but for many people, and for the family and friends of gay people, and for people who were very welcoming. So that was a great question. And what it began to do is our path to recovery. because we started with the right answer. Within a day, we had prepared them with the apology and then began the repairing of the damage and the trust. But they had to do more internal training, much more remedy of education, explaining HIV and its spread. And they had to have more sensitivity, understanding about HIV and AIDS. At that time, we didn't have PrEP. We didn't have a lot of therapy or means to deal with HIV and AIDS. And the company was very sensitive to making sure at least that their customer-facing staff had enough knowledge. But the very first thing that the company also did is they recognized the employee group. And I think one of the second most important things that American did at the time was to involve other employees. So they created the DAC, which today still exists, the Diversity Advisory Council. And one of the things that I think was very far-sighted too was to create a communities of faith as well. There were early conversations we've always had with corporations when sometimes they'll say gays and Christians. Like they will discuss Christian employees or associates as though they're different from the gays. And I said, well, you know, many of these people who are gay, they belong to faiths. Many of them are church-going people. Some of them are even ordained. I mean, some of them are active leaders in their faiths. So it sort of does a disservice to both people of faith and gay people to think that they're two separate and conflicting or divided groups. So at that very moment, during that very first year, American created, when they created the Diversity Advisory Council, the two co-chairs were the head of the LGBT group and the head of the Christian employee group. And from that moment forward, they had one mission, is to work as one. And I always thought that was such a smart thing to do because they had to have a mission that was focused on their organization and they had to show respect to all. And I think from that moment forward, they figured out ways to really embody a collaboration, a teamwork that was rare in corporate America. In fact, over time, when American Airlines took some very early injuries from groups that were very much opposed to its friendliness towards gay people, the Christian leadership at the company, many of them stood up for the company. They stood up publicly for the company. They did not want to hear people shaming or insulting American Airlines for being open-minded and open-hearted. And I always thought that that was a powerful thing to do because, again, it showed respect for all. It wasn't intended to polarize individuals, and it was intended to avoid politicizing or making it controversial. The whole idea was simple. Everyone flies with us. We treat them all wonderfully. We treat them all with great welcome. So we reopened the lines of communication with the community. We became very much more committed to supporting LGBTQ nonprofit causes. One of the very first things that American did that year was to fly, if you're familiar with the NAMES Project, the NAMES Project is the powerful, massive quilt with the names and each quilt of somebody who died of AIDS. And it was often displayed at major events like during National Coming Out Day in Washington, D.C., and it would take up the entire mall in front of the Capitol. That was something that American could do. They would ship that quilt, the NAMES Project quilts, across America to different places to be shown. And through those means, their actions matched their words. So they became recognized as one of the very earliest pioneers and leaders in diversity and equality. They had committed to doing the right thing and not just saying the right thing. So that's where we began. And so our destination was equality. And so what we were aiming to do was earn that reputation. And also, very important to me and to all of us is to grow our customers. You know, we wanted to show that doing the right thing delivers to your bottom line. And so American then became the official carrier to almost every national, at least in the United States to begin, to every prestigious LGBTQ nonprofit. All the other carriers hadn't even figured this out yet at the time. And it created a national recognition and favorable media attention that they were able to reverse over the next 2 years. But we also had to deal with risk, and we also had to deal with issues of backlash. There's one time in my office, I had a stack of emails from people angry with American Airlines because of their actions. But when you looked at every single message we got, every single one of them had been instigated by a group. It had been engineered by somebody trying to pressure American to back down. And to American's credit, your CEOs throughout, from the beginning, from Bob Crandall forward, always made the decision that they would vote and speak with their values. And so they never turned their back, no matter how much criticism. There is one day actually that the groups that were criticizing American, they bought full page newspaper ads in every major newspaper in America. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Dallas Morning News, the Miami Herald, and every single one attacked American Airlines for taking this position. And from that moment forward, American didn't blink. It just kept moving forward because they just made the position clear, is that if they turned their back on any group, they would not be performing their mission, their values. It wouldn't be speaking to their core values. So along the way, we eventually worked with all of these nonprofits, the very important nonprofits, at least in the United States, and now the Chamber network around the world in addition. But the National Gay Pilots, I think, Steve Sherrill, you're on here. I think one of your colleagues is president today of NGPA. So I think American Airlines has a very deep investment in the pilots. But you've also been very involved in PFLAG, the Matthew Shepard Foundation, the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, which has the American Airlines Award given out each year. And there it's Martina Navratilova, one of the world's great athletes. And Out and Equal, the workplace consortium that you're very familiar with too, global organization. But an interesting credit that I think we've all referred to repeatedly, American is one of only 13 companies in the world that have earned a perfect score on the Corporate Equality Index every year from the very start. And actually now, it's funny when I talk to American Airlines teams, it's unthinkable, I think, for anybody to reverse course on that. That is such a mark of consistent, high regard for leading with its values and its policies, that it's unthinkable for you to get anything less than 100%. It means, too, as the boundaries of the Corporate Equality Index continue to increase, to rise, American keeps stepping up its own policies to match them. I am now on the board of the Human Rights Campaign Business Advisory Council, so I'm actually one of the governors of the policies there. So these are very important to me for many, many years, and getting it right has been so important to American. So there are a lot of firsts, as you know. The first major airline to implement non-discrimination policies for sexual orientation, but also for gender identity. One of American Airlines' first pilots who was a transgender pilot was in 1999, quite a long time ago. First major airline to have a LGBTQ group, Gleam, and then became merged with Pride, became Pride in 2014. The first Fortune 100 company to establish its own marketing team called the Rainbow Team, which was around for the first 10 years. They had equal benefits before same-sex marriage came along. And also the first major airline to include LGBTQ-owned businesses in their supplier diversity program, a mark that really matters to the chambers, as we know. So they found many ways to lead by their actions and not just by their words. Now, I think these are kind of a fun walk down memory lane, because a lot of companies are trying to figure out how to address the consumer. How do you talk to them? So American did it in a number of different ways. They said about, instead of flying straight, we'd fly forward in 2007. And also I like the clever print, and actually these were electronic digital ads too, that in 2006, when you would do the no more smoking, buckle up your seatbelt, and then the rainbow would come up, or the Human Rights Campaign signal. It was just a very funny idea to remind people that those were as core values in terms of safety messages as anything else. So they're sort of collector items. And then we took another swing at it again in 2008 and 2009. In 2008, we decided to go retro. The images that are created there, those are actually contemporary images drawn in 2008, where we tried to present a gay couple as though they were getting off a plane in the 1940s, the 1950s, because we're trying to make the very clear point is that you can fly forward, but style and gay people were always part of us. They were always our customers. They were always our passengers. And so these were sort of ways of connecting. And we tried to also do something that's very important in advertising images, is make them as multiracial as we could. We wanted to make it clear that we're looking for just not two white people, not two white men. And so we're trying to make sure that we gave them at least an idea that we were looking for differences connecting. And then we also shot these two ads in 2009 were actually shot in the Caribbean. And they were to, but we focused rather not on images, but on messaging.
Alert from Google Chrome. Los idiomas acute es hablo del mundo.
I'm sorry? I didn't understand, sorry.
Don't worry, Bob. It was like, let's make a break here. It was my computer that I cannot control.
Oh, your computer was talking to me. Okay.
Yeah, my computer was talking to you. Well, that thing happens. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Yeah. Everybody knows me. This is the way.
No worry, Viv. So when I think about why this all matters, I wanted to summarize at least how a company thinks through these issues. What are the discipline that you think through as you engage? When you want to be a leader in the LGBTQ space, well, you start where you always end. You begin with your values. And if your values are real, your values are enduring, then you shouldn't have any problem flying through the criticism or objections, because your corporate values define you. And that's what every company that's successful knows. If you waffle or change on your message and your values, then you're caught in the act of not being true. You have to empower your workforce. You have to give them the voice. You have to keep them first in mind as the authentic voice of these values. You have to engage senior executives. I mentioned earlier today that one of the problems I think early groups always faced is that they sometimes had senior executives who were gay or lesbian or bisexual, but they weren't out. And it was always a concern that the closet became more of a prison for people higher in their advancing in their careers. Instead of a very difficult message or sometimes confusing message to, people entering the workforce. Is this a place where I can be myself? Can I really succeed? Can I be senior vice president? Can I run HR? Can I do this? And so if you're going to set the tone and the career paths for all of us, you have to have senior executives who are themselves, either openly LGBTQ or allies. They have to carry one of those messages. And also, you have to really get outside of the group. Now, a lot of the groups, when they started, they were so focused on things like getting equal benefits. They wanted, in the United States, we don't have nationalized health care. So getting health coverage for your dependent partner was a big journey. And that was the first place many companies went to try to equalize or make fair the benefits given to married spouses. But with allies, what you were trying to do with allies is get them a voice in the organization to be as strong as we are. In fact, I would argue today is that our allies probably are our least secret but most important weapon, because allies have so shaped the acceptance of LGBTQ people by their authenticity. And they really, really make a great difference in corporate America, in corporate Argentina and Peru. We have to always focus on internal education. There's a lot of change going on, especially with transgender and gender identity issues. There's a lot of knowledge that's missing. People are confused about gender nonconforming people, about the language, about their health needs, about their discrimination. So there's a great deal more work to be done in education. That's something that all of us have to do. Workplace policies are always the focus because we want to match the policies to the needs. And today, the next frontier is actually things like family leave. I work with a company that you may know, Mass Mutual. Mass Mutual is a major insurance carrier. Mass Mutual has a very progressive policy about benefits. What they decided now is that you tell us who your family is. It doesn't have to be a lawful or blood relative. If you are having a dependent relationship with there's different people in your relationship who are important to you, and they care for you, they look after you, and they sometimes even are economically interdependent, then that person can be defined as your family for the purposes of their coverage. What they're trying to do, and I think it goes way beyond our LGBTQ identities. There are a lot of families. There are a lot of single parent families. There are a lot of families in which grandparents play a significant role helping raise grandchildren. In other words, families don't look today in 2020 like they might have 10, 20, 25 years ago. And companies are beginning to recognize that support for that family is in your head, it's in your eyes. You decide who your family is. And respect for your customers. The customer, when they tell you who they are, you have to understand and communicate to them with equal respect. And finally, this is the new frontier for a lot of companies. Express your values with pride in public. It means coming out as a company and talking about pride celebrations. It's talking with the community after the Pulse tragedy. It's talking about when our US Supreme Court just passed Title VII protections for gay people at work. They just made a huge historic decision that said forever across the United States, you can't be fired now for being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or a transgender person. That never was history in the United States until this past week. So knowing that, when companies say that that matters to them, it speaks loudly that they share our history, they share our success story. And that's why the companies that have done that have made such a difference in our lives. American Airlines was one of those companies that signed a friend of the court brief, an argument in our Supreme Court in support of that. And so therefore they spoke with their values in the public in a very, very authentic way. That said, now let's talk about the marketplace, because this is also a place that I want to make a difference. No matter what, in 2006, we wrote the first book on marketing. And one thing that every company has asked us is, who are gay people? What are their households like? What do they think? What do they buy? Now, the truth is, we all know it. We're not that different from our families. You know, we probably use most of the same things in our households. We buy the same kinds of things. But sometimes we buy more of certain things than others. But there's a big loyalty factor. Our research with Pew told us that over half, or just around half, of all LGBTQ adults say they have not bought a product or service because the company provides it, it's not supported. If it's a Chick-fil-A or if it's a certain other kinds of company that are not supportive. And 49%, roughly the same number, say they specifically bought a product or service because the company is supportive. So when you're known, you're going to get at least a boost of consideration and purchasing power. In Britain, Stonewall does what the Human Rights Campaign does. It also marks those companies that are most supportive with their recognition. American is known as one of the best places to work in the world for LGBTQ equality. Brand loyalty. 8 out of 10 LGBT people are extremely likely or very likely to consider brands known to provide equal benefits. 7 out of 10 said they're likely to consider brands that support nonprofit causes. Half of them say they would remain likely to a brand that's very friendly, even if they cost more or it's slightly less convenient. In other words, people will go somewhat out of their way or might even pay a premium to buy with a company that they think supports the community. Those are big differences. Those are competitive edges that companies benefit from. Now here's where, again, allies make all the difference in the world. Friends of mine at the IMRE agency did this survey 2 years ago, and they were looking at what do our friends and family and coworkers do? How do they respond in the marketplace? 1/3 say they'll stop buying from a company that is not gay friendly. And 1/4 say that they will tell others. And they'll tell them if they're friendly, and the same percentage will let others know if they discover a company is not gay friendly. And 1/4 say they like others to know about the gay friendly companies they support. So in other words, you're getting a lot of word of mouth. You're getting the value of creating more reputation from, again, one of the groups that's mostly on board to support the community. Consumers reported they're more likely to spend money with businesses and brands they perceive as LGBT inclusive. This is another way of asking the question that Ogilvy did 3 years ago and asked it in Fortune magazine. But LGBT allies, 2/3 of them say that they are more likely to spend with companies that are perceived as LGBT inclusive. But notice also that all Americans, every adult asked, half of them said that they would be more likely to spend money with businesses and brands they perceive as LGBT inclusive. So they're voting with their dollars. They're voting with their money. And also they believe it's good for the economy. 85% of allies and 65% of all Americans think it's good for the economy because it's inclusive. And this just last year, a very big study that Procter & Gamble did with GLAAD in the United States. GLAAD is the media watchdog in the United States that looks for LGBTQ impressions and perceptions in all forms of media. Half of the respondents, these are all Americans who had been exposed to LGBTQ people in the media, say they're more accepting. But 8 out of 10 who had been exposed to LGBTQ people in the media say they're more supportive of equal rights. So these impressions in the marketplace are influencing their favorable attitudes, and they're changing their points of view in their minds. These things weren't true 10 years ago. They weren't true 20 years ago. But media perceptions and public visibility have changed significantly. The ability to accept gay people in all walks of life. And that may explain why this year, why Pete Buttigieg, the former mayor of I want to say Fort Wayne, but it's not Fort Wayne. It's, I forgot his city now, I'm afraid. But why an openly gay mayor came so far, so high in terms of running for president, and being a gay man or being openly gay made very little difference to most voters. I think a lot of that's true because of media and public attention and the work of corporations that are inclusive. Very important here, finally, is this. The overwhelming majority of non-LGBTQ people show they're highly comfortable viewing LGBTQ media images in the media. They have strong favorability towards brands that have LGBTQ inclusive advertising. And they believe these media images are what lead to greater acceptance and understanding. So again, to put this in context, the work that American Airlines and many other companies today are doing have changed both their fortunes and our fortunes. It has created an environment and a climate of acceptance that is a positive for business and more equal and more inclusive in society. The work of the chamber, the chambers that are doing this kind of work, make all the difference in the world, as you can see. And the data tells us that over and over again. Now, I want to give you, Open for Business is an interesting organization. It's a consortium, a collaboration of companies, and they have a think tank. And I have three takeaways from this that I want to really share with you. What they ended up doing this last 2 years is they aggregated and compiled all the available business research available to us: demographic research, market research, consumer attitudes, economic research, marketplace research. This is the kind of thing that I love, because 25 years ago, when I was sitting in American Airlines office, none of this existed. Nobody had ever thought to even ask these questions. But here's what we've learned about the marketplace. Global millennials and Gen Z generation expects that brands have shared values of inclusion. They expect that. They expect them to be gay friendly. And that LGBTQ plus inclusion attracts non-LGBTQ consumers too. It's not either or, it's both. And that consumers believe that LGBTQ inclusive brands are good for the economy. A majority of consumers will stop buying brands that are known to be homophobic, and that the growing spending power of the consumer is global. And you can measure it now in more than one nation. If you have some good economists, you can measure that spending power. Talent and innovation. This is where I think all of us pay a lot of attention to, because even in this economy, which is highly vulnerable and sort of perilous right now, companies still have to recruit and retain top talent. So recruitment's a major motivation for many companies, especially for high brain companies, the consulting firms, financial services, a lot of other areas. But recruitment is a major motivation for adopting inclusion, but it also attracts non-LGBTQ talent too. This is so important because it's an indicator. If they're a gay friendly or LGBTQ friendly employer, they make a difference in terms of other diverse populations thinking that they are being welcomed to. Senior executives find they're more attracted to inclusive companies. LGBTQ individuals who are out of work are less likely to leave. They have more innovative cultures, and that kind of workplace diversity, as we all know, leads to fresh ideas and better solutions. These are things that companies have learned and measured. And so I think we have been pioneers on that path. We have been shaping that story. And finally, financial performance. That LGBTQ inclusive companies tend to have higher stock returns and higher market valuation. Credit Suisse and others have been able to do some measures like on like companies in the same sectors. Those companies that are outperforming are the ones that have more inclusion. They have a stronger return on equity, and high performing companies are more likely to be LGBTQ friendly. If you look on the Fortune 100 in the United States, you would see it, but if you look at any world indexes, you would see the same outcomes. But why do LGBTQ inclusive cities outperform? Now here, a little sweet and sour news, because Buenos Aires is scoring pretty high, but not at the highest yet. It is scored by Open for Business, is partially Open for Business on measures of inclusion. And in certain ways, Buenos Aires and Argentina are way out in front. Politically, you've already pushed the envelope in terms of law and public policy, because on adoption and marriage, for example. But there are other indicators of innovation and inclusion that you still have to play some catch up. And the Open for Business benchmark, I know Pablo and Gustavo are familiar with it. If you look at it, it will tell you why every city is scored and what measures are the predictors of that innovation. And the stronger the performance in LGBTQ inclusion, the more likely a city is to provide an enabling component for innovation. It's a signal of openness and diversity and culture. And that's going to be true around the world. So I think that the index is a powerful index to review. But for me, I want to go back to where I started 10 years ago. I find Buenos Aires, and I think Argentina as a whole, has one of the more exciting, welcoming, and authentic cities on the planet. And I think in terms of America's engagement partnership, it has been a place that we have learned from, in terms of building a community. And I think it's something that we still have much more work to do. So what I want to do, and I think, Vivi, I think I have a lot of questions I probably have to go into here, so I probably should do that. But I also want to make it clear that some of the statistics I'm simply referencing, I would make the underlying documents available to anybody who would like to read them or see them. There's a lot of data and a lot of great benchmark data today that tells us the business case. And it depends on, whether or not you're in the marketplace or you're in financial performance, which ones are going to make a difference. But I do want to make sure I leave enough time here for us to talk and have questions. Should I look at questions on here on chat, I think?
Well, as you said, Bob, thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
And, yeah, we do have a lot of questions. There's one right here that says, Bob, you know that the airline business is highly complex with multiple customers' touch points. A negative or positive experience could occur to any of the different delivery points in a customer's travel journey, their interaction with the brand. How do you project customers' values in a way that resonates with the consumer base while protecting the brand?
Let me understand the question very carefully again. Would you just phrase it so I understand?
You know that the airline business is highly complex with multiple customers' touch points.
Yes.
A negative or positive experience could occur at any of the different service delivery points on a customer's travel journey, their interaction with the brand. How do you project customers' values in a way that resonates with the consumer base while protecting the brand?
Well, that would probably spend a few days trying to unpack all of those issues. But here, I think I would explain a company's philosophy in this way. A large and varied, a complex company like American Airlines that has a lot of touch points, you're never going to get it perfectly right, ever. And you have to speak to it like a work in progress. In other words, not every professional, not every executive in the makeup of the company is going to have the confidence and the knowledge to speak to inclusion in all the right ways. But some of them are going to get it very badly, and they're going to get it wrong, and you're going to have to correct those because mistakes happen all the time or errors happen all the time. But with the others, I think what you have to do is drive it from above often in terms of executive examples. If you have your CEO and your in American, actually, I was going to say you had one of the great champions of LGBTQ inclusion was, I forgot his name, Steve or somebody there may remember, he was head of cargo. David, I want to say David, remember, he's not there anymore. But what I was interested in is he ran an organization in cargo that was probably, I would argue,
18 hours.
What is it? What's the name? Oh.
No,
Sorry, it's BB and BB's computer. It's wanted to ask questions.
Usually read.
Sorry, Bob, again.
But the thing that I was going to mention is that I discovered that there are various portfolios within the company in which the champions came out of all different places. And often they work with somewhat less, let's put it, I was going to say, I don't want to disparage people without college degrees, but what I meant is they might be a more blue collar workforce. And they were not intimidated by learning and becoming sensitive to issues of inclusion. I met a lovely friend of mine who was in cargo and in transit. And she had transitioned. She had transitioned in the process of working American. She entered into a very male-centered, focused occupation, and she had to deal with the issues of gender in addition to being a transgender person. And I discovered over time is that she ran into many issues of conflict and concern. But she always felt, and she said it over and over again, that the leadership had her back. And so a lot of the work of creating that culture of acceptance is driven by role models, managers, and managers knowing they're going to be judged and educated and scored in performance by how truly inclusive and how knowledgeable they are, but also how they put it into effect, not just own it, but they actually address it. So that's one thing, because of course you have so many, you have all your food preparation, you have all your flight manpower and women power, you have so many characteristics that you have to figure out each of those organizations, some of them unionized, which is both a challenge and a benefit or advantage of working through different structures. So it's extremely tough for a company like American that is so layered to be able to achieve all those things. But the thing that I'm impressed with is that your leadership never blinked and kept moving. Anyway.
I have another question here. It says that American Airlines has started including X and U as gender indicators. Can you share some etiquette on when we see the indicator when servicing a customer either over the phone or in person?
Let me understand this again. This is using the X indicator on gender?
You as gender indicators, if you can share some etiquette or when we see that indicator when servicing a customer, either over the phone or in person.
Well, I think that is going to be the challenge, because a lot of us are raised with pronouns that are so binary. And it's going to be a challenge to have ways of framing the question so that you can get it right. What you end up doing is often asking the person to tell you exactly how they'd like to be identified. And the problem is on the phone, you're right, you're going to take the cues out of the. And unfortunately, as we already know, customer service today misguesses or guesses wrong on gender of a lot of people. I've been told, I don't know if this is true, but maybe in Latin America, is that men mistaken for women express more offense than women confused for men. And that's that may be the case, I don't know. But what I was going to say is I would always argue for inviting the customer to give us their information and inviting it at the very beginning. And oftentimes I've heard customer care people express it this way. My name is Viviana. I use she, her, hers. And if you would like me to refer to your pronouns or refer to you, do you have any way you'd like me to refer to you? And you know, it sounds awkward at first, but it's becoming more common for people just to invite that. And also, when they're referring to a partner or a companion, it's best also to say, how would you like me to refer to your companion, your traveling companion? Because if you ask, then they think you actually care. And I think that conversation could be a very profound one.
Bob, I have a question from one of our friends from the government of the city of Buenos Aires. He wants to know if you have any advice on people that have to travel to places where being part of the LGBT community is illegal. What is your advice on that?
Well, you know, it's interesting you ask, because I have friends here in Washington who belong to our diplomatic service, right? They're people who are representing the United States around the world. And some of them are also gay people who actually are married. They have spouses. And so they may be asked to go someplace where that is the case. So the government has had two ways of thinking about it, and Buenos Aires might have to think about it. They have to ask that person their willingness to be able to do that, because not everybody can do that. And the other one is making sure that you convince or communicate to that person that their career path is not jeopardized. Because see, a lot of people would worry that if they're not eligible for that role, for that job, for that transfer, they will lose an opportunity to advance in their career. For example,
Right.
some people want to go to China, which has great opportunity as one of the largest nations on earth. But the diplomatic service fears that sometimes they'll face hostility or even be ineffective if they're perceived as a gay couple. But again, I think what they're trying to do more and more, I'm not sure under this government, I have to tell you, but before they're really being honest with them and saying they know they're gay, they know they have a partner or a spouse, and they give them the opportunity to make a choice. And also try to help them by understanding what those issues are going to look like. What are they going to actually face on the ground? So they try to give them opportunities to talk with others who are in that position. I have to tell you, a few years ago, when we did not have before the Obama administration, gay diplomats who came from Canada, or they might come from Europe who are already married in other countries, the United States would not recognize their spouses. And so they artificially labeled their spouses as drivers and cooks, just so they'd have diplomatic status. But they created a fake identity for them just to give them permission to work here. And I thought, that's so disrespectful. And I hope governments like Buenos Aires and Argentina and the United States really address it in a very honest way. But again, Christian, I think it's somebody's choice whether or not they're willing and able to do that. If it's in a really hostile environment, then that person could actually be a big help to some of the LGBT civil groups that are in that society. But they have to be very careful in doing that, as you know. They're protected by their status if they're a diplomat. If they're a private citizen, they're not.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like everybody is like very excited. I have a lot of questions. At least two more. Can you give me two more?
All right. Oh, let's keep going as long as we can go.
Okay, guys, don't be shy. Spanish English is welcome.
Yes.
Si quieren hacerla en español, pónganla en español y nosotras se las pasamos a Bob. So, estamos celebrando. We are celebrating. There's nothing to worry about. Be yourself. We love you guys. So, next question. How would you like me to refer to your traveling companion?
How would you like?
How would you like me to refer to your traveling companion?
Well, in my case, I would say my husband. But I've said that for many years. Even before we were married, I referred to him as my husband. I said, I don't feel we're boyfriends after we've been together for 10 years, you know.
Okay, that was a sweet question, isn't it?
It's a very sweet question.
It is. And I have another one that I was, well, everybody said, thank you, Bob. You should know this, right? Because you're not reading. Thanks for the invitation. You're a genius. Everybody is like sending you kisses, hugs. And,
I want to see them. I don't want to stay here. I want to come.
Exactly. I knew.
I'm sad. I'm sad.
You're sad? Okay, you want to see all the people we have for you? Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a pity because we had organized this in March to be.
I know.
We had your tickets. We had your hotel. We had everything for you.
I know.
So due to the coronavirus situation, we had to cancel it. But
you have elections on the 3rd of November. If there is a change of government, you see a lot of changes in policies for the LGBT community?
In a heartbeat. Probably within 2 days. Everything that can be rolled back will be rolled back. Everything that we can do. The president, if Joe Biden becomes president, he has said in the first 100 days, he's going to act on the Equality Act to try to get that into Congress and get that passed. So I think from a regulatory and a legal standpoint, I think there'll be a revolutionary changes underway. Not only that, I'm on a policy committee for Joe Biden right now. We're organizing according to groups to deal with youth issues, adoption issues, health issues. And so everything that we can do, we're going to try to organize around. Plus, I would say this, try to be a better friend and partner to countries that are our friends and our partners. We have to be better friend to Argentina. Why wouldn't we? You know, it's crazy.
Thanks.
Yes. You will show us the way. We will come back to the light.
All right.
Okay, is there any more questions? Anyone else who opened the camera and wants to ask?
One question. When
Yes.
are you, when the COVID allows us to resume traveling,
Yes.
when are you thinking of visiting in Argentina to share
Within
your
24
experience
hours.
with us?
Within 24 hours.
Okay.
You have to wear a mask, you know.
I know. I will be there. I want to keep you all safe too. I want to keep you all safe. I love you all very much, and I'm just sad I can't be with you today. I will give you this beautiful weather we're having, okay?
Good.
Thank you, Bob.
And thank you. You all should know that we've been rehearsing, and Bob was very, very generous. He opened his place, doors for us, and we've been rehearsing for you, trying to share all his knowledge, and it's huge. We could be like a week with him, listening to him. It's such a pleasure, as always. We do have the privilege because Bob is our friend, and this is the only way we understand relations. I mean, we do this friendship as well as with Pablo and Gustavo. And let me tell you, every single leader, this is the only way.
Vivi, you and I are very, very close friends. You're like my sister. I want to say, though, I also want to do a big shout out to Pablo and Gustavo, the fact that they have paved the way for many of us to build I think, a permanent bridge to the United States and around the world, because they put Argentina on the map. A very, very powerful and very trusted and very authentic way. And so we think of Argentina as a brother and sister to us too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, indeed, they're great.
I want to invite everyone, if you want, to open your camp, because I think that he deserves a strong applause, and he has, maybe he wants to see your faces, so I invite you all.
Well, Pablo, I have a question. I saw them at the beginning. I said, did all the ugly people stay? Because all the pretty ones are on here. They're all beautiful.
Okay,
They
everybody.
are.
Tienen que ir a buscar peines para ser lindas.
So many pretty people. Look how pretty everybody is.
Yes.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Hey, Marcelo Costa. Bienvenido.
Hey,
Billy
nice
Colbert,
to see
Marcelo
all of you.
Costa.
Well,
It's a pleasure to be here with you, with all of you. I know Bob very well, and thank you, American Airlines, and you, Vivi, and all people around here in Buenos Aires to present this part of the capital here in.
Well, and I want to say, thank you. I want to say a shout out to my friend Pepe Estrada, who is there from Walmart, very close friend of mine. Colbert, I see. Mr. Colbert is on board. There's another traveling genius.
Gracias, Bob. We all love you a lot.
Pepe.
Too much.
Pepe, this is the second time Pepe and I have been around on the webinars today.
Wow.
Well, from our side, we promise you that you are going to be the first, not the webinar, the first presentation in Argentina. Yeah, you and your husband. So
I hope so.
I invite everyone to give him an applause, and I think that this is coming to an end. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vivi,
so much,
un
Bob.
abrazo grande.
All right. Gracias.
Thank you, Bob.
Gracias.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Thank
Vivi.
you, man.
Pablo, gracias.
And
Muy
thank
bien
you,
hecho,
Martin, as
Vivi.
well.
Bravo.
Thank you. Bye, Vivi.
Gracias.
Martin.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy Pride.
Happy.
Hey.
Ale,
Woo.
Ale, hermosa.
Hola.
Sí.
Steve.
Hi.
Hello.
Nita, Winston, Larry Bowles. I love you guys.